Alexander the Great amassed the largest empire in a single lifetime. Alexander became king of Macedonia after his father Philip died. He then set out to conquer the Greek city-states. He conquered Athens, Corinth, Argos, Megara, and many other city-states. After conquering Greece, he went over to gain control of the Ionian colonies, which had been conquered by the Persian Empire. He sailed over to Ionia and conquered the many city-states. He then went to Issus, a city under the control of Darius, king of the Persian Empire. Darius had about 90,000 soldiers under his command. At Issus, Alexander only had 20,000 soldiers. Before the battle was to begin, Alexander told his soldiers this: "Remember that already danger has often threatened you, and you have looked it triumphantly in the face. This time the struggle will be between a victorious army and an enemy already once vanquished. God himself, moreover, by suggesting to Darius to leave the open ground and cram his great army into a confined space, has taken charge of operations in our behalf. We ourselves shall have room enough to deploy our infantry, while they, no match for us either in bodily strength or resolution, will find the superiority in numbers of no avail. Our enemies are Medes and Persians, men who for centuries have lived soft and luxurious lives. We are Macedon, who for generations past have been trained in the hard school of danger and war. Above all, we are free men, and they are slaves. There are Greek troops, to be sure, in Persian service, but how different is their cause from ours? They will be fighting for pay, and not much of it at that. We, on the contrary, shall fight for Greece, and our hearts will be in it. As for our foreign troops, Thracians, Ponians, Illyrians, and Agrinas, they are the best and stoutest soldiers in Europe, and they will find as their opponents the slackest and softest of the tribes of Asia. And what finally of the two men in supreme command? You have Alexander, and they Darius." That speech tells that Alexander thought that he was a great leader. Alexander then had to conquer the well-defended country of Phoenicia. The hardest part of Phoenician cities' defenses was the many walls that surrounded the city. Once the enemy got past one wall, he would have to pass another wall. The way Alexander got past these walls was that he built several large towers that would be pushed along the ground and pushed against the wall, and soldiers would rush out the top and gain control of the wall. He would then have them pushed into the city and have the soldiers in them take over the next wall. He would have them do this every time until all the walls were under his control and he had control of the city. This strategy worked, and one by one, Phoenician cities fell into Alexander's reign. This shows what a great strategist Alexander was, and being a great strategist is a great leadership quality. Another great leadership quality is courage. Alexander had lots of courage, and so does his army. One of the most courageous things Alexander did was when he attacked the city of Tyre. Tyre was a Phoenician city that was on an island. It had one of the greatest navies in the world. Alexander decided to attack Tyre without any boats. He decided to build a bridge to the city so he could use the towers he had made to get past the walls. He built the bridge, but it was not easy. Several of his towers got destroyed. The bridge also got destroyed several times by ships. Eventually, after 9 months, the bridge was completed, and he started his attack. He first sent his towers guarded by many soldiers, then sent the rest of his infantry to help with their attack. Once they reached the island, they started their attack. They used the same attack they used on every Phoenician city, and it worked. The city of Tyre had fallen. This was very courageous because no one had ever been able to conquer Tyre. How old was Alexander when he led his first army?
He was 16 years old. He was a cavalry commander under his father, Philip II, and they were fighting a battle at Thebes, and he was very, very successful in that campaign. He didn't become king and full commander of the army until his father died. At that point, he was about 23 years old.
Was Alexander's army good, or was it his good tactics that made them win?
Half and half. His army was very, very experienced. He fought in many campaigns with his father, and the army became practiced in military maneuvers, strategies, and tactics and such. So they knew what they were doing. So Alexander started out with a great army, but it was his ability to come up with new strategies and new tactics that allowed them to go farther than any other Greek army had ever gone before. So it's a combination both of their experience and Alexander's ingenuity.
What made Alexander such a great leader?
He was a great leader in large part because he knew how to inspire his soldiers. Didn't treat them as his subjects. He treated them more like his partners, and they were all in this grand enterprise together. And if they didn't follow him, he was nothing. Right? And without him, they were essentially nothing either. So they inspired each other, and they would do anything for Alexander.
What is the legacy that Alexander left?
Alexander was responsible for transmitting Greek culture to the Near East. And the extent to which he did this is up to debate. It's probably true that although Alexander built Greek cities and Greek theaters and Greek temples, that the common man in the Near East wasn't very concerned with that. So Greek culture didn't percolate downward too far. It probably did influence the upper classes of the former Persian Empire, and also made it feel a little bit more like home for the soldiers that Alexander left there to control his empire. So if you go over to the Near East today, you may find traces of some of the temples and other structures that Alexander left behind. But as far as Greek culture goes, none of that is left.
What do you think was Alexander's greatest strategic decision?
His greatest strategic decision? Probably his best idea was to incorporate the Persian upper class into his new empire, and also Persian soldiers as well. It's not like in the Gulf War, when the Americans went in, they purged the government and the army of everybody who was loyal to Saddam Hussein. Alexander the Great didn't do that because he knew these people had valuable experience that he could use. So he kept them in the army, he kept them in important positions, he used them as advisors and such. So he was very, very smart in that way.
Has anyone ever reused one of Alexander's battle strategies?
Yeah, the Romans did this all the time. They studied famous battles in history, so they had books that described Alexander's battles, battles of Hannibal and such things, and so they would use these again and again. In the Second World War, General Patton, an American general, had also studied the battles of Alexander, and probably most commanders throughout U.S. history who went to West Point did this as well.
Alexander's legacy remains today. Alexander's battle strategies have been used throughout history. Julius Caesar and Napoleon Bonaparte both used his battle strategies. He is remembered for defeating the Persian Empire, the Phoenician cities, Egypt, and India. He amassed the largest empire in a single lifetime. He brought Greek culture out to the Middle East and brought Greece into the Hellenistic era. Alexander truly has great leadership and a great legacy.